All right, guys, I want to talk about this fascinating interview / conversation featuring Tariq Nasheed and DJ Akademiks. Now, if you guys don't know who Tariq Nasheed is, that's okay because I really don't know who he is either, to be quite honest with you. All I know is that he's a social media influencer who is one of these, super pro-black guys, okay, that is selling his constituents a pipe dream that one day they're going to get a check in the mail from the U.S. government in the form of reparations. And I'm telling you, that will never, ever, 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 ever happen, okay? It will never happen, right? I've talked about reparations before, and I feel like periodically on my channel, I have to talk about it again because the conversation comes up or somebody has some conversation about it that I want to chime in on because I'm not trying to sell you a pipe dream. I'm keeping it 100% honest with you. Reparations is not going to happen for a variety of reasons, okay? One of the reasons why is because if reparations actually was to happen, then you got to open up the real history books, right? And when you open up the real history books, you're going to find out that it wasn't just whites that owned slaves, right? In America, you also had Native Americans that owned slaves, black people owned slaves, okay? And the original sin of slavery is not the white man, okay? It actually happened in Africa, right? Africa is actually where you should be going to get your reparations, right? Which we're going to talk about later in this video. But I'm just saying, the people that are begging for reparations aren't really asking for reparations. What they're actually asking for is UBI. They want universal basic income. They want a stimulus check just for so-called black people. Because a lot of these people don't even know whether or not their ancestors were actually slaves, right? A lot of black folks, again, so-called black people, again, I say that for a reason because it's just funny who we characterize as black and who's not black. But that's a whole nother video for another day. A lot of people came over here after slavery, right? As immigrants, okay? So again, I have not heard one convincing argument as to how we are going to figure out who was actually negatively affected by slavery and who wasn't. All I've heard was that the U.S. government owes us money and they got to send us a check. And in this case right here, this guy is asking for $20 trillion in reparations. And that is the reason why I am responding to this, because this is just absolutely ridiculous, okay? He's selling people a pipe dream, okay? This will never, ever, ever happen. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this interview so I don't make this video too long.
So, reparations. They got to do reparations specifically for foundational black Americans.
How do they tell who's foundational?
That's what we're doing out here in California.
All right, guys, so what y'all understand? They got a new term for it now, right? The new term is foundational black Americans. It used to be ADOS, right? American descendants of slaves or African descendants of slaves, or whatever you want to call it. It used to be that. So now the new term is foundational black Americans, okay?
California, they have a reparations committee that we've been on their bumper, and we made sure that they made it lineage based because there were people trying to make it race based so they can just give it to any black person who was harmed by racism. That's very dangerous because if you do that, you allow other immigrant groups to come in. So now Hispanics can say, well, I was harmed by racism. I need to get in on that too. You got to make it lineage based.
Let me ask you a question. So two people who one came from Trinidad, one came from Haiti. Mm-hmm. They've been here since the 90s. They had a kid. The kid's now 30. Mm-hmm. The kid says, all I know is here. Mm-hmm. I need some of that reparation money.
Because he's not a descendant of slaves in America. He's not a foundational black American. The foundational black American reparations claim is a specific claim about slavery. See, this is not a claim about racism, okay? If we want to have a reparations thing about racism, that's a whole different claim. We're talking about something that happened to a specific group of people. We were enslaved in this country and we were never compensated for it. We need that group compensated. You can tell who's a foundational black American. You go back to the 1870 census. If you can trace your lineage back to that census, you're a foundational black American.
But see, here's the problem with that. How, right? How is what they just say, well, if you can trace your lineage back to the 1870 census or whatever, right? Fine. But how? A lot of black people have no clue what their family ancestral lineage is, okay? They can't just trace their lineage back. I would have no clue where to even start for my own family, okay? Now, again, that doesn't mean it's not possible, okay? Because I'm pretty sure that my family is a descendant of slaves, but I don't know that for sure. I feel like it would be tough for a lot of people to go through that process and to get DNA tested, to do everything that you would need to do, right? The cost of even just trying to classify somebody as a descendant of slaves to verify that their ancestry includes African slaves who was shipped over here to the United States. Again, that in of itself would be a huge cost on the government, right? Just to do that.
Also, you have to be classified as black for the last 10 years. That's another thing, too, because white people would try to say, well, hell, look at, I got a great-grandfather who was a slave, and they're white now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but wouldn't that make them a descendant of slaves? Why would they not be eligible for reparations? Why would not a white person or a mixed person who had an ancestor that was a slave, why would they not be eligible? If it's about righting the wrongs of slavery, see, again, this is what I try to tell you guys. When you listen to these people talk, it's not about actually righting the wrongs, right? It's not about the person that did the wrong, aka the slave holders, paying back the slaves, okay? That's not what it's about, okay? That's what reparations is. What they're really asking for, guys, is a stimulus check, right? They're asking for a stimulus check for anybody who just so happens to be able to trace their ancestry back to slavery, okay? And who is still black today or identifies as black, okay? They don't really care about, actually paying back the people whose families were affected by slavery, negatively affected by slavery. They don't really care about that, okay? What they really care about is getting a certain group of people, aka themselves, paid. And I guarantee you this man can't even show the paperwork and provide evidence and proof that his family was a descendant of slaves, right? I guarantee you he can't provide proof. Maybe he can, but I'm just saying. He just said that this is not about racism, right? That he said it's not about people that's affected by racism. But he also just said, well, even if you're white and you have an ancestor that was a slave, well, you're not eligible because you're white. Well, how does that make sense? Because the only reason you would exclude a white person who had an ancestor that was a slave is because you are assuming that a white person today did not go through racism. But you just said it wasn't about racism. It was just about the descendants of slaves. If a white person is descendant of a slave, okay, then shouldn't they be eligible? But again, he's not trying to make them eligible because it's not about actually righting those wrongs. It's not about that. It's about him grifting, right? Trying to get people to send him money and to support him in this effort that will ultimately end up being worthless, right? It's not gonna happen. People aren't going to get reparations, okay? And don't get me wrong, guys. I'm for the spirit of reparations, okay? If this was during the Reconstruction era, I'll be one of these people like, yes, black people need to get some money, right? We need our 40 acres and a mill, okay? However, it's not. We're more than 150 years removed. It would be damn near impossible to really trace back those who were negatively affected by slavery, okay? Who had ancestors that were slaves, okay? Because it's probably gonna be a lot more people than you think, right? It's gonna be a lot more people than you think. And there's gonna be a lot of black people in this country too, okay? Believe it or not, who think they were negatively affected by slavery, but actually had ancestors that owned slaves. So are those people going to be writing a check, right? Are they going to be emptying out their bank accounts and giving it to other black people? Probably not. And if that's not the case, then you're not talking about reparations. What you're talking about is a stimulus check from the government, right?
They've been trying to pull that type of game. No, your ass going to sit down somewhere. Yeah.
So you're making sure there's nobody's going to come in finesse.
None of that. No finesse. No Rachel Dolezals, no Justin Timberlakes, and none of that fake shit. So yeah, you have to be classified as black. I wanted to go further. You have to have Negro, black, or colored on your birth certificate. I wanted to go there.
But wait, you do know, like, within, the black community, there's been a lot of culture mixing and a lot of, mixing. Like, for example, you might have somebody who's a foundational black American who then had three kids with three women, and one might be from the islands, one might be, from Africa, whatever. Like, who cares? You know what I mean? But how do you figure out who to really give if do they have to be of pure blood at that point?
No. So if you can trace one parent back to a plantation, you're good. That's all you have to do, even if it's
except if you're white, right? Except if you're white. Don't forget to leave that part out.
One person, your mama, whatever, and you got
white people are definitely gonna get that shit in.
No, hell no, because you got to still be classified as black. You got to be classified as black still.
Okay, so it's not about righting the wrongs of slavery anymore. It's about getting a certain group of people paid. Again, this is not reparations. This is not reparations, bro. It's not.
You have to be
Now, Rachel
classified as black now.
Rachel Dole.
Yeah, but on your birth certificate, Rachel Dolezal ain't black on her birth certificate. That's why I say we got to have
transracial.
But on her birth certificate, she ain't black. You see. But yeah, man, there's a lot of people who have foundational, and they're still qualified for reparations.
How much money?
Man, we're talking about starting off with 20 trillion. Let's start off with 20 trillion.
20 trillion. 20 trillion, bruh. 20 trillion. Bruh. Again, that's almost more than our national debt. Okay, our total national debt. This man said $20 trillion. Guys, can you imagine if the U.S. government printed $20 trillion to give to so-called descendants of slaves, right? Do you understand the money at that point would be damn near worthless, right? We've seen the inflation that has happened from printing, how much money we print? 10 trillion or something like that over the last 2 years or so, right? We've seen the inflation from that. Imagine printing 20 trillion. The money's going to be worthless, right? The money's going to be worthless. Where are you going to get this money from, bruh? Real talk. Where are you going to get the money from? Be real with people. Because at ultimately end of the day, again, this is not reparations. Who are you taking the money from? You're taking the money from black people, and then you're giving the money back to them, right? You're taking the money from future generations and giving it to the current generation. Because that is who the money belongs to. It belongs to the taxpayer, right? So, again, how is this reparations? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Because ultimately, this is footed by the taxpayer. It's not coming from a foreign country. It's not coming from a foreign government. It's not even coming from those who are descendants of slave owners. It's coming from everybody, including the people who were descendants of slaves. Again, these people are selling a pipe dream, man. They have this conversation because there's a certain group of people in this country that simply just want to check. They want to check, and you have people that are taking advantage of that. And it's wrong, right? It's wrong. Stop trying to promise people that this is going to happen when it's not going to happen. Stop having this conversation. It's a pointless conversation. This is why I'm real with people. Go out there and get your own reparations. Reparations are available to you being a black person that is born in the greatest country ever, doing a time in which you have the internet. Knowledge is at your fingertips, bruh. Reparations is right in front of your face. You just got to open your mind up.
Yeah.
How many people do you think is being affected? So 20 trillion for how many people?
They say it's like 40 million of us. I think there's more because we're undercounted. A lot of black people, we don't like taking the census thing. A lot of us, we live under the radar. That's another reason why I think they're afraid of really giving reparations, because they're going to see the true number. When they start showing that we're going to get checks, you're going to start seeing
people coming out of the woodworks.
They're coming out the damn woodworks.
Yeah.
I believe there would be about 70 million black people here, man. To be honest, I believe there's way more foundational black Americans than being counted.
So let's talk logistics. Where does the 20 million come from?
The United States government, because
AKA the taxpayer. Like I said, these people they don't have any real answers, bruh. They don't. They want the money to come from the taxpayer. The people that are supposed to be getting the reparations are going to be actually paying the reparations. Where you actually should be going for the money, if you want real reparations, go to Africa, right? Go to Africa, okay? Because those are the people that committed the original sin. Those are the people that took our ancestors, okay? They enslaved them and then sold them to the white man. Without those people, the white man and the Atlantic slave trade would not have happened. Or put it this way, it would not have been as robust as it was. Because the white man, despite how powerful the woke revolutionaries try to make the white man look, right? Which is my problem with these people. They make the white man look so powerful, okay? When back then the white man wasn't all that powerful. He needed help, okay? From the Africans, okay? The white man could not infiltrate Central Africa, right? They did not have enough manpower, enough resources, enough knowledge of that area, the geographical breakdown of that area, to actually infiltrate Central Africa and to accumulate the amount of slaves that they did. They needed help from those who did, which were the African tribes in the kingdoms that were rounding up the slaves in Central Africa and taking them to the coast to sell to the white man, But see, if you listen to some of these people, you would think that, well, the white man just went to Africa and, they invaded and they, took all the black people, they made them slaves, and, that's what happened. And that's not what happened. That's not what happened. If you want reparations, you don't even need to go to, again, England, because a lot of people say, well, it doesn't make sense to go to the United States government because that means we'll be paying reparations. We need to go to England because they're the ones that bought the slaves. It's like, no. That's not even the original source. You need to go to Africa because those are the people that enslaved our ancestors in the first place. Without those people, without those African kingdoms, those tribes that did that, the Atlantic slave trade would not be nearly as robust as it was. It would be impossible. Logistically, it would just be impossible. But again, they don't want to have that conversation because that means that you got to start asking African people for your reparations. You know damn well you're not getting it from them either. But again, if you want reparations, true reparations, go to those guys. You can't blame the Europeans, and this is going to be controversial, but I don't care because it's the truth. Back then, it wasn't just Europeans enslaving people. You had Arabs that were enslaving black folks. I mean, there was enslaving white folks too, Eastern Europeans, right? They were being enslaved. Africans were enslaving other Africans. Slavery was common. You can't blame the white man for doing something that was common during the time and using his property, because technically those slaves were the white man's property when they were sold from the African man. You can't blame him for using that, right? Using his property and taking it over to the United States and enslaving folks. You can't blame them for that. That's not to say it's right. Obviously, it's wrong. But they did what everybody else was doing at the time, what was morally acceptable. Now, in today's lens, from a morality perspective, we all agree that's wrong. But back then, it wasn't. Back then, they were simply doing what everybody did with property. Back then, humans were property. It is what it is. People don't like to hear that, but that's the reality. That's the truth. I'm not sugarcoating it. I'm not trying to say, pipe dream. I'm not trying to sell you some, whitewashed version of history where the white man is so powerful and everybody else wasn't. No, I'm not telling you that. I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you the truth. And the truth is that for these reasons, reparations is never, ever, ever going to happen. It's never going to happen. Period.
That's where
out of any specific budget or just find the
no. What was the budget for the COVID relief? They came up with money for that. Where was the budget for the damn Ukrainians? That came out of nowhere. Give me some of that Ukrainian money. The money you gave to the bailout for the corporations. They come up with money all the time.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, bro. Yeah, it's a shame that politicians come up with this money, right? Anytime they want to bail out corporate America or send money overseas and not help out Americans. But where that money comes from is the American taxpayer, including these so-called descendants of slaves. You can't get around that. As long as you're asking the U.S. government for money, again, you're not asking for reparations. You're asking for a stimulus check, okay? You're borrowing money from future generations to pay people today, right? It doesn't make sense. If you want reparations, go to Africa. Ask for your reparations there.
The money they gave to the Afghanistanians, get me some of that.
So I think this is one of the reasons why
that was not even close to $20 trillion, right? That's another thing. That wasn't even close to $20 trillion.
White folks specifically are resistant to anything about a reparation is that once they have finally admitted that they owe, it's going to be one of those things where you not only collect, but you go back to the back of the line, or you come back later and say, I need more. So is this a one-time payment? And how would that break down to like every particular black foundation of black American? How would that break down like per average? Is it like 100,000? Like what is it?
There's a lot of different logistics to it. Sometimes it could be in monthly payments. It could be one lump sum payment for the family. So the logistics of it, that's something that we can get to when we get to it. And again, we're starting off with cash payments. That's a start off. Then we got to get into land grants because so many black people had their land taken.
Okay, so it's not just cash, guys. You got to also get land grants as well, too. Again, it never ends. It's never enough for these people, right? It's never enough. So you give them a check, a one-time check of a few $100,000, maybe $1 million. Nah, that's not enough. You still owe us more, right? You can take all that money and buy all the land you want, but no. It got to be that and land, right? And land.
They were run off their land. They were out here in California, Los Angeles, they had something called Bruce's Beach. The family just got
I
their
just read that.
They just got their land back up there a few miles.
How the hell did they get that back? I would imagine like they would fight that shit to the nail.
Grassroots, the grassroots movement, man. The grassroots, you on it. If you stay focused and let these people know, hey, we need what's ours, man. There's a place up there north of Bakersville called Allensworth, where a bunch of black people founded a town and they ended up poisoning the water supply and ran the black people off. The place is a tourist attraction up there, but we are so grounded in building so many of these communities, and we've been wronged by the society. So we have to be compensated, and there's different ways to do it. But just the fact that they have to do it, that's the main thing.
What about if they...
No, they don't have to do it. Right? And it's not going to happen, bro. It's not going to happen, man. They're selling people a pipe dream, man. That's what's happening. And it's sad. It really is sad. They're still having this conversation about reparations. And people keep asking for it, but they can't come up with any realistic, reparation solution, right? They can't come up with any. They can't even really give you a clear idea of how they're going to identify people who were truly descendants of slaves. This guy just told you that, hey, it's about people that were, descendants of slaves, whatever, that had ancestors that were slaves. But no, white folks, if you had a, ancestor that was a slave, you're not eligible because you're not black anymore. So it's not about being a descendant of a slave anymore, right? It's not about righting the wrongs of slavery. It's about race. It's about who's so-called black and who's not. And also had ancestry that was slaves. Again, this is ridiculous, right? It's ridiculous. But I did find it to be a conversation worth responding to because, again, these people want to continue to have this reparations conversation. And I will continue to say that it's stupid, it's silly. And the best thing you can tell black people today is get your own reparations, bro. Reparations is available to you. All you got to do is just go get it, right? Just go get it, man. Use the internet, bro. All the knowledge in the world is at your fingertips. You were born in the best time ever, in the best country ever. Be satisfied with that and get your own reparations. But telling people that requires them to actually work hard, work smart, take risks, and to do things for themselves, right? And not just wait for a handout. And a lot of people don't like that. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a black conservative perspective. Peace.